Hello. Thank you so much,
Hello.
Tanya. Today's subject is labels disable. And Tanya, can you please share with those that are listening what it is that you do?
I'm a learning support assistant in a mainstream school in the UK.
So, a learning support assistant.
Yeah, so I,
O-
I mostly work with children with additional needs.
Okay, so
Um,
additional needs. Right. So, there's a label right there. They've got
that,
additional needs. There's a
yeah,
label right there. So, we thought of talking about this subject because of what you're experiencing in your work world in terms of the labels that are being attached to children, including additional needs, which
yeah.
implies what? Which implies what? You know,
Well, they used to call it special needs, so it's moved on
there's another
from.
label. There's
Yeah,
another label. More separation. So
yeah,
before we dive into that, I'm going to share my perspective about what labels are. Now, sometimes we need labels on jars and containers and buildings. Okay. However, labels become a problem often when we need to attach them to ourselves and to the people around us. And labels that we're seeing now, which are actually creating additional separation. Labels create separation. Labels say, I belong to this religion and you don't. Your label says you belong to that religion, so you can't come here and I can't go there. Separation. Labels say, I'm an extra problem, I have special needs, as opposed to, it is what it is. Labels support the idea that says there's a certain container, there's certain ideas, and if you go outside of those ideas, you can now become a problem, right? Special needs, additional needs, as opposed to what? That's just what the child needs. There's a measuring stick with labels that is so blatant, okay? And we can see how obvious this is now in our culture. So you were going to share something there, please.
yeah. So there is definite a divide between the additional needs and the mainstream, for want of a better word, um, because the children that don't have the additional needs see the other children getting what they might perceive to be extra, um, either extra help or extra fun, and then they feel, why don't I get that? And
Right.
I feel that all the children could get the same, and it wouldn't make any difference. You
So
know,
what you're saying is that there will be some children who see a child who has different needs.
yeah,
Different's fine because we're all different. Different isn't a label that creates separation. So there will be a child, and you'll often see this where favoritism plays out in families, where one child will be given additional attention, and another child, it's a child, the child doesn't understand this different attention, and so
mm,
it can create competing and comparing in the families, right? Oh, you're the special one. Oh, you're the smart one. And you get your attention according to the way that you've been labeled and perceived by your external reality, the players, the parents, etc. So I want to come back to the measuring stick that I use, which is love, unconditional acceptance, and unconditional appreciation, which is I accept you as you are. You're different from this one, and you're different from that one. Now we're different, but we're equal value. And the world that we see right now is very jealous, it's very competitive, it's very defensive. The labels that we're seeing being attached to people now, one of them that I see doing a lot of damage is my toxic parents. Okay,
mm,
normal human behavior, which is designed to create a classroom setting for us to master energy and emotion. So if I'm angry and the other person doesn't like my anger, they now label me toxic and use it as justification to reject or to build walls or to judge, criticize, condemn. So the labels that are being also attached to these children, and it starts early, we're labeled early, okay? I was given labels in my family, and those labels actually shamed me and shunned me. So that becomes the child's programming. So what does this say to the children who have different needs? We all have different needs. What does it say to those children? Does it attach a stigma?
So
Low
sometimes
self-esteem?
they'll use it as an excuse. You know, they'll start to use it as an excuse for themselves.
A crutch?
Yeah, or you know, an excuse to treat other people like badly. Oh, it's because of my ex. It's because of my
Yeah.
this, that, or the other.
Yes.
Yeah, I see
It's a
it.
very, yeah, it's a very good point, because we're seeing a lot of people buying into victim mentality, right?
Yeah,
And a grown adult is very rarely actually a victim. A grown adult, we're going to talk about a regular situation where a grown adult has a choice about whether to take action, to take responsibility, to take accountability. The victim mindset says, I don't have to take any responsibility. I don't have to take any accountability. And I'm going to expect expect the external world to meet all my needs, so I don't ever have to take full responsibility and accountability. And we cannot awaken to the truth of who and what we are until we begin to take full responsibility and accountability. So mainstream media and social world right now is really promoting the victim mindset, which actually disables us.
yeah,
It keeps us disempowered and miserable, because that's what society shows us. So somebody with different needs from person A to person B to person C, we're being taught to compete and compare and say, no, I'm a bigger victim, so I don't have to take responsibility. You need to pay my bills. You need to take care of my needs. You need to tolerate my complete disrespect and my emotional turbulence, and I don't have to consider you at all. So it disables the victim mindset person from stepping into their power and becoming a self-governing, self-regulating individual who can self-soothe through self-awareness, self-reflection. And it also disables the other person, because the other person is going to have to overfunction to compensate for the victim.
yeah.
The victim is a vampire energy.
And also the government don't make it any easier, because they give more funding to children with additional needs, and so therefore the parents like want the labels because their children get extra help and extra funding and so on. It's a sort of self-perpetuating problem.
So instead of seeing the situation, it is what it is: unconditional acceptance, unconditional appreciation, love, no judgment. Instead of seeing it from a place of compassion that says being human is really challenging and we all get a different dose of challenge, let's just work together to meet our diverse needs. The governmental system governs your mental, tells us what to think, tells us which child has special needs and how much money they'll get, decides based on the individual situation whether or not this child is worthy and this child is not. And the irony is that there's many children who would not be deemed special needs, but who very definitely do have different needs and would definitely benefit from additional funding.
Yeah.
So the governmental system is brainwashing and programming, teaching us how to think and how to separate and divide and categorize and label to disable, to create dysfunction and enabling, which is not fair. It doesn't create equanimity, right? It creates separation.
And the quiet children who, you know, could do with a bit of extra help. They're the ones that kind of get lost in the mix, because the children that are shouting the loudest, that have additional needs, are the ones getting the funding and so on and so forth. So if a child is, say, disruptive in a classroom, and that doesn't necessarily mean violence or anything like that. That could just be tapping on a table to, distracting other children. So those children are getting the extra, and the children who are just quietly getting on with it, not being a victim, but could do with the extra.
They may be turning themselves into a victim in a different way, because a lot of us are taught, I know I was taught, that I was not allowed to have feelings. They were unacceptable. They were inappropriate. They were bad. They were wrong. So I completely abandoned myself and didn't speak up, so that I didn't upset and disturb. So there's another way that society's dysfunctional programming and governmental systems is creating. So one child screams and has the temperament to scream and get the attention. The other child doesn't have the same temperament potentially, or has had different programming and conditioning, and then abandons themselves in a different way. So the child screaming to get attention is making themselves the victim to get their needs met externally. Now, as children, that's necessary, but we want to remember that this is creating the programming for the future adult. And then the other child learns, I can't express my needs. I've got to be quiet. I don't want to scream. That's not my temperament. So therefore, my needs aren't even going to get recognized. So we're taught, remember, we live in a world of duality and polarity. And as long as polarity is at play, good, bad, right, wrong, inferior, superior, loud, quiet, there's a potential for imbalance. And we're looking for balance, which says, I unconditionally accept, I unconditionally appreciate your circumstances. I may need to create boundaries, but I don't need to judge you. I don't need to separate you from humanity. I don't need to make you a problem. I don't need you to abandon yourself, and you're not asking me to abandon myself. And what this really breaks down to is 100% responsibility and accountability. Now, a child can't do that. But if a child has that modeled in a healthy way, the child will evolve and grow to become an adult that can do that.
Yeah.
From your perspective, are the children that you're caring for being shown behaviors that will enable them to rise into sovereign, self-governing, self-soothing, self-aware, self-reflective, self-loving, self-trusting, self-respecting adults?
It's most definitely going in the right direction. However, there's still the competitive side of education, and it's like there are a lot of really good people in education that are really trying their best to not enable and to model the way. It's just got a bit of work to go.
So we're still talking about competing and comparing, which is the labeling that children get through the grading system. You're an A student, you're a B student, you got 100%, you got 90%, you got 2%. And now we're going to, again, label you, categorize you, pigeonhole you, and put you into a specific slot. So the grading system competes and compares, which is another form of labeling. And then once you get your grade, we are now going to stamp a label on you that says A student, B student. And this becomes the internal dialogue of the child as they mature. So it is definitely progress that children who have different needs are being recognized and those needs are being met. However, the comparing and competing is still at the core of the system, which is required to label. Labels disable because they create separation and division. The
Yeah.
path to unity, the path to love, is not to need to label beyond the need to recognize, to function. Okay, like we need to label, this is a car and this is a wheelchair. Do you need a car or do you need a wheelchair?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this is peanut butter, this is almond butter. Do you want peanut butter or almond butter? So it's a very difficult thing, really. There's no way that we're going to be able to just flip a switch. And I absolutely agree with you. The kind of work that you do tends to draw deeply loving, compassionate people who often burn out because the system works against you.
Yeah. Yeah. I can say that for myself on occasion. Yeah.
So
Um,
the governmental system is actually the problem. The way
yeah.
we've been programmed and indoctrinated to compete, to compare, to separate, to polarize good, bad, right, wrong, superior, inferior.
Yeah. And I'm also noticing there's a lot more violence coming
Yes.
through. And yeah, I'd like to sort of, I kind of
Well,
wonder.
the violence will rise, and it's most definitely on the rise. Both physical, psychological, and emotional is on the rise, because the more polarization, the more resistance. And resistance creates conflict. And if we don't know how to resolve conflict, the resistance is expressed in dysfunctional ways like anger. I don't know how to feel my feelings. I feel judged. I feel minimized. And now my perception is that you're attacking me. And the only thing I know how to do at that level of consciousness is to fight back. Right? So take example of the victim mindset now that is saying, parents are toxic. And it's like, well, actually, if you want to look at it that way, then you're also going to be toxic by judging your parents for being toxic, instead of recognizing through the compassionate approach that says we all get a dose. Everybody gets a challenge. Humanity, human life is very, very challenging. And it's when we start to compete and compare.
And,
My
and,
challenge,
and we're all doing our best to do our best. And,
yeah,
so
and
with
that's
the
coming from,
tools that we've been given through generations
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and so
and
on.
different levels of awareness.
Yeah.
Different of awareness. So I was able, through self-reflection and doing inner work, I was able to see the shortcomings in my parents' parenting. And I corrected a number of those shortcomings. However, everybody gets a dose. I came with my own shortcomings that had, potentially nothing to do with my parents. So it doesn't matter. You may overcome your parents' generation, but each generation has a challenge, because that's the nature of humanity. That's the nature of the human experience. We come into very challenging circumstances, which will either create imbalance, separation, suffering, competing, comparing, polarization. Okay. When we forget who and what we are, when we come to remember who and what we are, we no longer feel the need to compete and compare, because we practice being who and what we are, which is love, unconditional acceptance, unconditional appreciation. It doesn't mean I don't need to create a boundary. And I'm also not saying that there aren't some parent figures that weren't hideously and horribly abusive. I experienced horrendous abuse, okay, which did a great deal of damage, you could say, but which I don't see as being bad or wrong, because I recognize that abuse became my opportunity to grow. It became the rock that I sharpened my sword upon. Now I have a boundary with the abusive parenting model. Okay, so that parent is not welcome in my life, and I don't need to push, shun, or judge. It's just I'm not interested in having you here, because you've shown me how you choose to behave. And I can't change that, and I don't need to, and I don't need to judge it. I just need to observe and discern whether or not I want to be in that environment. So this is one of the solutions that we can start to practice to model the way towards unity, letting go of the needs for such extreme labels. Now, we do need certain labels, but they've gone into overdrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what's creating the anger. It's creating the righteous, entitled mindset. that says, I'm a victim. No, I'm a bigger victim. No, I get more attention. No, I get more pity. No, I get more taxpayers' money. No, me. And it's a very small, immature, small-minded and immature individual that is processing their experience that way. And we don't need to judge it, but it would be wise for us to observe and discern, if you have more maturity, to recognize that this person doesn't have the ability. It doesn't make them toxic. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them wrong. They just haven't developed to that point. So maybe practice a little caution. We got a little feedback here. Practice a little caution when you're around that person, and don't buy into the victim mindset. Don't buy into the labels that they feel the need. And labels go the other way too, right? Labels can go the other way, where we say, I'm a movie star, don't you know? Do you know who I am? You know, I'm famous and I have 1,000 followers. You should treat me with preference, and I'm entitled and righteous, and you know, I should be paid $9 million for acting in a movie, when someone like yourself is being paid barely a living wage to do the most deeply compassionate work.
Yeah, yeah. Can you speak about bookending? Because I find in my job, I find myself, you know, slipping into that overpower, and then I have to self-reflect. Oh gosh, you know, and oftentimes I'll apologise to the child if I, you know, if I've overpowered, instead of what's the middle way? Not overpowering, not overfunctioning, not underfunctioning.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. The first thing I want to say to you is, please don't be so hard on yourself. If you do find yourself, you know, going out of balance, that's a constant experience in the human life. The part that I would encourage you to focus on to support yourself to show up even stronger and more effectively is to say, but I do self-reflect. I do take responsibility. I do take accountability. We're all a work in progress. Nobody's perfect. I'm doing my best to do my best. I'm taking responsibility. So, and I'm taking accountability, which is I'm apologizing to the child. Self-correct through self-control, through self-awareness, from self-reflection. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no harm, no foul, because what you did for the child was you modeled the way. You modeled the way.
Responsibility.
Right. You modeled the path that would be required in order to create unity and to release the separation, which creates comparing, competing, and suffering. So I would say to you, excellent modeling, because you took responsibility, you self-reflected, you took accountability and course corrected, and showed the child, wow, you know what? That's a humble adult. So I'm seeing the model of a humble adult, and a humble adult modeling the way, doing their best to do their best, becomes the solution. So this is one of the reasons why I asked you to do this chat, because as you live your day-to-day life, Tanya, I've come to know you pretty well on LynettaLinda.com, the network. And I've watched you again and again and again show up with kindness and compassion, taking responsibility and accountability. So please, again, and for anybody else who's tuning in, don't beat yourself up. You're doing the best that you can. So the bookending part, which was your original question, is where I encourage bookending your day, beginning and ending your day with an intention. I went back to bed this morning for an extra 40 minutes because I needed to do that. I needed to go within. I needed to have that talk with myself. The inner dialogue is so important. Okay, your own basic cheerleading squad inside says, we're going to get up and we're going to go do this today. And I set the intention to do my best, to do my best. And I'm not going to beat myself up, because that's not a good cheerleading squad. I'm going to say, okay, what do I need to do to course correct? What do I need to do? I don't feel good about this behavior choice. I don't feel good about this behavior, these actions choice, whatever it is, thoughts. What do I need to do to change? Well, number one, take responsibility and recognize you're the one that can make the change. So bookending says, I begin and end my day through that self-reflective, which creates self-awareness process, saying, what did I do today that didn't feel really good at the end of the day? And beginning the day with, I'm setting my intention to be as loving as I can be. I can't be perfect. I don't expect that. But I'm going to take responsibility without beating myself up. We're dealing with the world right now that's gone mad. It's completely fallen into chaos, and this needs to happen. The first stage of awakening, the first stage of enlightenment is the collapse. The unsustainable system is one that creates suffering, competing, and comparing. If it's not for the greater good of all, causing harm to none, including self, then whatever it is that we're buying into, whatever we're doing is going to collapse. And that's what we're seeing now. Globally, society is collapsing. It's also called the Great Awakening. And this is happening, this is happening because the governmental systems have created ways, programs, ideas, thoughts, indoctrination that always creates competing, comparing, and suffering. So if we beat ourselves up when we're doing the best we can, and that's all that anybody can do, if we beat ourselves up for that, we're completely lost. So bookending says, I'm going to lovingly support myself. I'm going to create an inner dialogue that holds me responsible and accountable, but also doesn't beat me up. Even if you had a day where you feel like, I didn't do a great job today, I didn't feel good about today. Instead of beating yourself up, get curious and say, okay, that didn't feel good, and I care about how I feel. So what can I do differently here? What can I do differently? Okay, well, you know what? I went to bed really late last night. Maybe I need to go to bed earlier. Maybe I need more self-care. I started my day with 5 cups of coffee and no breakfast, no protein. I can hear my nutrition person, protein, protein, protein. Okay, so maybe I did that. And I know myself. My ability to deal with that external chaos, that external competing and comparing, which is constant, is diminished if I don't practice bookending loving self-care. And we get a lot of labels before we even wake up. I have to look like this. I have to be this body weight. I have to be this height. I have to have this style. Trending is mind control. If you're going to go along with a trend, I suggest you really take a moment to stop.
Fire as well, isn't it? Trending.
Yes, yes.
It's absolutely on fire.
I every once in a while I'll go onto something like YouTube and I will look at what's trending, and honestly, it causes me to feel concerned because what's trending is stupid. There's a label, but it's actually a choice. To be stupid is to say, I'm not going to practice self-accountability. I'm not going to practice discernment. I'm not going to practice critical thinking. I'm going to just bump along and just go with the herd.
Yeah, Pardon? And it changes with the wind as well. The trends, they just change with the wind.
Yes.
Or the trends.
Yes, and the trending is basically someone being led by the nose. So if I meet somebody who's decided they need to, adorn their body with labels and to follow the herd with all the latest trends, I'm not going to judge that person. But I am going to observe and recognize that if they need that level of labeling, do you see what I'm wearing? Do you see who I'm with? Do you see what I've done? Okay, if they're living with that level of labeling, then the odds are I'm not really going to be able to have much of a connection with them because I'm going to be having a relationship with their labels. It's very inauthentic.
And the insecurity, I think. There's a lot of insecurity going on, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm not centered in self. I don't know who and what I am, and I'm allowing the world through the governmental system, social conditioning and programming, media, etc. I'm allowing it to tell me where I should go, and I'm following it like I'm being led by the nose. Oh, well, if I do this, will it get me approval? Oh, if I do that, will I join your club? Oh, if I do that, do I get accepted? And none of that matters. And it's just one big, long, lifelong wild goose chase for most people, when in actuality, the truth is, how do I see myself? Listen to the inner dialogue. Are you labeling yourself as bad or wrong because you happen to dominate a child in a brief moment when you were trying to take care of the child?
Yeah, it's something I'm working on. I'm starting to catch myself
Ah,
labeling myself now, and then I'm able to flip it. But it's quite deep rooted, isn't it? When
well,
you're
it is. Yes, and
but it gets subtler and subtler and subtler. The more you do the work, the subtler it
mhm,
gets. So you sort of,
yes,
you think you've let go of a big piece, of, I'm not really fussed about how I look or what weight I am. I'm doing my best to eat well and so on, and sleep well and everything. Um, and then it goes, I find myself like just earlier, saying that, I'd done this thing, but
it,
actually
it,
the the big thing is that I've recognized it, I've course corrected, and
yes,
that's the positive.
and redirected, and that's the point. That's the
Yeah,
point. So we choose prior to embodiment, we choose to come into this reality, understanding what's going to happen here. So we basically fall into the shadow experience. You don't have a shadow side. That's another label that I disagree with. We don't have a shadow side. It's a shadow experience. We are light. We are love. We are the truth. We are the way. Unconditional acceptance, unconditional appreciation. And when we practice that for ourselves, we take our power back. We no longer need the external approval. We no longer need to wear all the right labels and mutilate our bodies and inject poisons and do all of these things. Okay. So it's through that self-respective, self-respecting, self-reflective process that you just described. I'm getting better at it. I'm seeing it. I'm getting better at it. I'm seeing it. And it's like, that's the point. But again, society teaches us through social conditioning, programming, and labeling to say, well, you're wrong and bad that you did it in the first place, instead of recognizing you were deliberately deciding before you were born to come into this reality where you were going to have that polarizing experience. We're here to master energy and emotion. So the fact that we might be a ding dong and a jerk and selfish and unkind and a real twit and an asshole, okay, that's all part of the course. It's all part of the experience. We get stuck because we essentially label ourselves as wrong and bad and project that onto others as well. Label others, we judge, we criticize, we condemn each other for the necessary essential circumstances and ingredients that we encounter when coming into life. And it would be the equivalent of saying, I had to jump off a cliff into the ocean to save my life. I had no choice. I fell in the ocean. Oh no, I'm all wet. I ruined my frock. I'm such an idiot. I ruined my frock. I fell in the ocean and I got wet. Well, like, you come into life, these are the conditions here. The name of the game is to really shift our focus to say, no matter what I've done, no matter what a horrible, heinous human being I've done, it doesn't matter that I did it. What matters is that I'm now recognizing it, recognizing that it doesn't feel good. I don't like that expression of myself. And to simply course correct and redirect. And if we're busy shaming, blaming, and labeling ourselves, then we're not going to be able to take accountability and responsibility to course correct and redirect and go, yeah, that feels much better. I feel good about myself when I am kind. I feel good about myself when I'm loving. I feel good about myself when I practice self-respect, which now means I can give it to someone else. If you don't have it, you can't give it. And
that's right.
that leads us back to balance. That leads us back to the space that says, I unconditionally accept, I unconditionally appreciate everything that happens here. It doesn't matter what happens. What happens on earth stays on earth. It's an experience that we're here to have, giving us the opportunity to master energy and emotion. This happens to be the 3D reality that polarizes, that, this particular space-time container offers certain lessons, which a divine immortal being comes into experience like a classroom. We come into this classroom to master energy and emotion, which is essentially to say, regardless of what label you put on me, regardless of how you see me, regardless of what you project onto me, regardless of the programming that I was given as a child, indoctrinated into a very dysfunctional system that does not have your best interests at heart. Don't kid yourself, okay? Regardless of those circumstances, no matter how dire and dark it got, I remembered who I am. I didn't shame myself for what happened in the dire darkness. I remembered who I was and said, oh, that's not who I am. Course correct, redirect, back on track. I feel good when I'm loving. I feel good when I'm open. I feel good when others feel good around me, and they can feel good around me, clean and green, not dysfunctional, not chemical, right? When I'm being who and what I truly am.
Yeah, the self-respect piece is very important and like a priority, isn't it? Like
It's
having self-respect.
Society, though, teaches us you cannot be respected by society and you have no right to respect yourself until you have the appropriate labels. And never mind that the labels are going to change from village to village, from country to country, from society to society. It doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to perpetually cause you to chase that carrot on a stick. You will never get there as long as you buy into the external system, which labels you to disable you. Full stop.
Yeah, yeah.
We take our power back in stages and degrees, right? And that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to do.
That's another thing. A lot of people want the quick fix, don't they?
We're programmed to want the quick fix. We're programmed to believe instant gratification. I want it and I want it now. And if I can't have it now, there's something wrong. And if I don't accomplish my goal immediately, I'm a failure. Again, more labels, more separation, more suffering. It is what it is. Space and time is an illusion. It's one of the biggest lies. All we have is now. Now, now, now. I'm going to sound like a Hallmark card. The eternal moment, the eternal now is all you have. The past is gone. The future never arrives. There is only now. How you see yourself now will be debilitated and diminished if you reflect on your past and bring it forward. Or if you project into your future, you'll live in fear. You'll have no power here. So there's 4 ways that we essentially get pulled off the path: by going into our past, by projecting into our future. And this only exists in the memory. Where's your past, Tanya? Take me there. You can only go there internally in your memory.
Yeah.
Where's your future? You can't take me there either. It lives as a projection. So the past, the future, external events, okay, or your emotions. Those are the 4 core ways that we get pulled off balance. So external events are a very big one in terms of where labels are, slapped onto us. Our past as a child could be where the initial labels were implanted. You're a problem. You're the easy one. You're the smart one. You're the pretty one. You're the ugly one. You're the short one. You're the fat one. You're the tall one. You're the this. You're the la la la. It just goes on and on and on and on.
And I think what I've realised from our conversation today is that a lot of the labels are coming from within, because they
don't originate from within. You're not
because of the previous programming.
It's the external,
and we're just continuing that labeling of ourselves.
So one generation gets labeled in such and such a way, and if the parent, before they become so my generation got labeled in such and such a way, okay? If I don't practice self-awareness, self-reflection, taking responsibility and accountability for those labels, then I'm going to unconsciously infect the next generation, my children, or anybody that I interact with, right? So we are, in a sense, not responsible for the labels. That's back to social conditioning and programming. And we need to understand the big picture to really get this. So the social conditioning and programming is deliberately designed in the matrix, okay, so that we remain disabled through the labeling, which creates competing, comparing, suffering, superior, inferior. There's a model that says, I'm a doctor, you should therefore immediately respect me. Well, I have to tell you, I've met one doctor that I actually respect as a medical professional and as a human being. Okay. And that is a naturopathic doctor, and her name is Dr. Jenny Weisenberger. I have a great deal of respect for that woman, but she also practices her craft as a healer through a vehicle that takes responsibility and accountability as a person. She doesn't expect you to just respect her because she's got this glorified title. Or for example, the policing system. Okay, the policing system is really the policy enforcers. Okay, and we're just automatically taught to obey what could actually be a very disrespectful, abusive, corrupt policy enforcer. Okay, so labels are powerful.
Corrupt policies as well.
Yeah, they enforce policies for the corporations. So for example, Canada is not a government. Canada is a corporation. So anybody who works for the governmental system will be a policy enforcer. And you must obey the label on the shirt, or you will be punished, or you will be shamed, or you will be shunned, or you will be killed, or whatever the case may be. This we can extrapolate here ad infinitum, really, when it comes to the labels. So let's bring it back to the important piece, which is, do you feel whole, strong, grounded, secure in self based on your projection? Do you like, appreciate, and feel strong and powerful in the labels? No. Do you judge other people based on their labels? Do you automatically trust someone because of the name on their shirt, or because of the projected message? For example, idolatry. Idolatry is a label that most people don't understand. Idolatry, it's not a label actually. Idolatry is a practice. And idolatry says, I'm going to idolize you. I'm going to worship you based on your label and projection, but not necessarily what and who you really are. Okay, so we see this like with Hollywood, right? If you project a certain image, if you put up a certain label, oh, it's a movie star. I don't care what movie star it is. It's a movie star. Okay, and it's all a bunch of lies. It's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors. They may be a beautiful human being, loving and kind, but more often than not, they are not, because they follow the system that says, I'm righteous and entitled because I carry that label, don't you know? And you should worship me and idolize me because I carry that label. Or you should blindly obey me and follow me because I carry that title, that label. So we're disabled from a very early age in this current dysfunctional society. We're disabled, essentially hobbled at the knees by a society that says, don't take your power back. We'll punish you for it. Don't break free from the herd. Don't think for yourself. Don't practice discernment. And for heaven's sakes, don't give someone your time, your attention, your care, and your affection based on the quality of character. Give it to them based on the labels, the external plastic.
Going back a little bit, you were saying about judgment and judgment forming labels. Can you speak on the sort of subtle difference between judgment and observation?
So judgment will create polarization. Judgment will automatically say good, bad, right, wrong, superior, inferior, worthy, unworthy, success, failure. Okay. Observation says it is what it is. I don't need to label. I don't need to pigeonhole. I don't need to categorize. It is what it is. And based on what it is, how do I choose to proceed? So a judgment would say, oh, you don't drive the right car, you don't drive a nice enough car, or you don't belong to the right club. So therefore I'm going to justify rejecting you, labeling you, and you know, separating from you, because I've decided you don't drive the right car, you don't look the right way, you don't live in the right neighborhood, you don't have the right job, you don't have the right title, you don't have the right label. So we'll see oftentimes, for example, a massive belief system is to be more worthy because you have money. Now it goes both ways. Some people are taught you're more worthy if you have money, and if you have money, you can be righteous, entitled, have whatever you want at anybody else's expense. Because I have a lot of money, you know, therefore I get to do whatever I want, which is basically a spoiled brat. It also goes the other way, which says people with money are bad and wrong, which is not necessarily the case. The point is, we need to take each individual as we find them. I'll take you as I find you. You're a loving person, it's safe to proceed. You just hit me with a baseball bat, I'm going to need to create a boundary. It doesn't mean I make you bad or wrong because you hit me with a baseball bat. I definitely didn't like it. And my righteous anger, my correct anger, protective anger is going to come up, but I don't need to make you bad or wrong. From my perspective would be, oh, you haven't recognized that you can't make friends if you're going to hit them with a baseball bat yet. So I'm just going to move away from you. I don't need to judge you, categorize you. Okay. By the same token, it may be, okay, I feel safe when I'm in your company. I feel respected. So I'm able to be in your space for now, today. Tomorrow might be another thing. I don't know. We create a file folder on each individual over time, and we recognize the behaviors over time, which teach us what we can expect when we're with that person. Now, I'm not going to judge your file. I'm just going to determine whether or not I can be safe and therefore connect with you based on how you choose to conduct yourself. Right? So someone who judges is going to judge right away. Somebody who observes is going to say, looks good so far, take another sip. Okay, I see what it is today. By the same token, maybe you were having a bad day when you hit me with a baseball bat. If you come back into my experience the next day, maybe you're going to take accountability and responsibility. If I remain open and I observe, then I'm going to be present to receive that apology, which could mean we could have a whole new relationship. But if I decide to label and judge and say, you're bad, you're wrong, that's it, I'm now entering into the blame and shame game. Right? So blaming, shaming, and fault finding are very close companions to labeling. Right?
And what about expectation? Because obviously there is a level, like for instance in the school, there's a level of expectation of the children to, you know, follow the rules. Our rules are be kind, do your best. Oh gosh, what's the third one?
That's a great start. That's a great start. Be kind, do your best.
Do your best. Oh, it'll come back to me. Anyway, there's an expectation, you know, those three things, there's an expectation of that. Yeah, expectation in your teachings is it one of the four demons?
No, it depends. We've got reasonable expectations and unreasonable expectations. Okay. We've got rational anger, we've got irrational anger. Okay, so again, we want to remember we live in a world of duality and polarity, and we're being offered go this way, or find the middle way, which is balance, which is neither this way nor this way, which creates polarization. So a reasonable expectation would be that if we're all going to hang out together, we got to be nice to each other. We need to, well, I don't even like that word, but we got to be kind to each other. So in order for us to be able to hang out with each other and have some ease and flow and a nice time, okay, we have to recognize kindness and respect. These are reasonable expectations. Okay, so if I'm going to form a relationship with you, then I have some expectations which I feel are reasonable, which is don't disrespect me, don't abuse me, etc. And I in turn will model the same respectful behavior. The expectations become a problem when it's based on our judgment of someone, which is let's take an example where it's like, I expected you to take care of me. I expected you to overfunction. I have an unreasonable expectation when it comes from a self-centered and emotionally immature place. Right? So reasonable expectation, I get my paycheck at the end of the week. Unreasonable expectation that I be paid 4 times the agreed amount. Okay? I expect you to do my bidding. Unreasonable. Unsustainable. So reasonable expectations will create sustainable unity and grow community. Unreasonable expectations will create separation, suffering, and collapse. And that's what we've got going on in this world. Let's look at some of the labels that are affixed to women, for example. Women are expected to work a full-time job, bring in 6 figures. They're supposed to have a perfect body. They're supposed to look a certain way. Like if you look at a lot of the young women now, or people that follow a lot of trends, I see cookie cutters. I can barely tell them apart. They all look alike. There's no individual unique. So there's so many expectations now that are projected onto us that a lot of people haven't yet recognized are actually disabling them. You're a completely unique work of art. I'm a completely unique work of art. If we buy into the idea that says, we expect you to do this, 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 be this, this, and this in order to be approved of, we'll find that those expectations will burn us out, create suffering, separation, and also typically make us sick, because they're asking us to overfunction, to mutilate our bodies, to empty our bank accounts for toxic beauty practices. Okay, so it might be
the expectation of keeping a perfect home along with the beautiful body and 6 figures and
but what is a beautiful body? Again, what's a beautiful body? I don't know about you, but it's a body. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. They're all beautiful. Holy moly, man. You're walking around in a custom tailored meat suit. That's pretty beautiful. But because you don't look like this label or you don't look like that label, we're going to decide to tell you that you're not a beautiful body. Diminish. All bodies, shapes, and sizes are beautiful. It's the competing and comparing that creates the suffering and the labeling, which says if you don't look like this or if you don't look like that, then we're going to reject you. That's the disabled part, right? A body is beautiful. A body's beautiful, period. It doesn't matter. We don't expect babies. Well, that's not true now. We didn't traditionally expect a baby to look a specific way, right? But we considered them beautiful no matter what. I remember a man saying when my daughter was first born, he said, all babies look like Winston Churchill. Right? He said, mine didn't. My daughter didn't look like Winston Churchill. However, from his perspective, all babies were basically, Winston Churchill. There was no beautiful or not beautiful. But what do we say about a baby? The moment we hold a baby, how beautiful. This bald, chubby, little pink, brown, purple, green, white, whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's beauty incarnate.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. So can you imagine if we started as women to dispel the labels, to stop competing and comparing, just the women, to stop competing and comparing and saying, you're beautiful, you're a completely unique work of art. Nobody ever says Picasso needs to paint like Monet. We celebrate Picasso for his completely unique style, which I don't really fully understand, but it doesn't matter. It's his unique style. Now, I really do like Monet. I appreciate Monet's style. I get it more. But I don't think Monet is better than Picasso, that one is more desirable than the other. I just simply resonate more with Monet than I do with Picasso. I don't need to reject Picasso or make Picasso wrong or bad. Just let him be. So we recognize when it comes to art, the more unique, the more value. But yet we don't recognize that is actually true about us as individuals. And it's the labeling that presents itself so early in social conditioning and programming and generationally that prevents us from recognizing that we are each a completely unique work of art, no labels necessary beyond what's needed to function.
Yeah. It reminded me of when my son was born, and it's not a moment of my best self, but when he was born, I was like, oh my gosh, I've had an ugly baby, and I felt awful. I mean, he knows that, he knows. He's not ugly at all. He's beautiful. But yeah.
But you judge yourself. I'm not being my best self. So, again, back to the moment now. We judge and criticize ourselves because the performance level or who we are or our degree of ability to be open and loving and patient and kind or whatever the case may be in this moment now wasn't the same as it was in the past moment. So I'm now going to say I'm not my best self in this moment and immediately diminish myself through that label instead of saying, you know what? There is only now. And right now, this is the best it gets. And you know what? That may change in the future and that may have been different in the past, but it doesn't matter. It's the best now. This is me. I'm always my best me. I can't not be. Here I am. This is me. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. If you don't like it, don't look. I don't care. I love me no matter what. And some days the best me is, a little bit messy, but that's okay. That's who I am in that moment. I don't need to make it wrong or bad. I don't need to create suffering for myself. I don't need that distraction, that discursion. Excursion, sorry. I can just simply say, you know what? This is who I am right now in this moment. And I love myself and I'm going to show up for who I am. Is this the way that I like to feel? No, I don't like to feel this way, but that doesn't mean that's not the best me because it's actually the best me right now so that I could experience that feeling to understand the contrast. You know what? When I behave that way, I felt really good. And I just discovered that when I behave this way, I don't feel really good. End of. Now make a choice. It's not my best me because that, again, you talked earlier about the very subtle degrees of shame.
Yeah.
That's a really onion thin layer degree of shame, right?
Yeah.
I'm the best me every moment because there is only this version of me. And I'm not good or bad, best or worst, right or wrong. It is what it is. This is who I am here in this moment now. And that's who you are in this moment now. Now, who you are being and who I am being in this moment now works. It's harmonious. So we're going to both feel good in each other's company. Maybe in the next moment, who I'm being and who you're being doesn't resonate. And that's okay. Let it go. Walk away. Come back another day. Or don't if this person shows you a repeated experience that it's constant conflict. If I find that even for no apparent reason, when I'm with someone, if I don't feel good, positive, stable, grounded, a number of things, when I'm with that person consistently, I don't even need to know why. I just know, okay, the energy's dissonant. We're not each other's best choice right now. I don't need to reject me and shame me and say I should be more tolerant or whatever. And I don't need to judge them and label them and say they should be different.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
No shitting on yourself or other people.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to start the ignition in your car, you should turn on the car. If you want to, hoover the house, you should turn on the hoover. When it comes to how we live, there is no you should do this or you should do that. It becomes you could do this or you could do that. Which one causes you to feel better, more stable? Which one creates more unity? There is no good or bad or right or wrong. It is what it is. And we can't screw this up. We can't screw this up. Labels very definitely tell us that we can screw this up. You can't. You're just going to come back again and again until you finally recognize it is what it is, unconditionally accept, unconditionally appreciate, and be.
Yeah.
Simple, but not easy.
Absolutely.
It's the path home. So before we finish today, I'd like to say, Tanya, thank you so much for sharing in the conversation with me. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And I would like to say to you, based on what I've observed about you over several years of time, I would like to say to you, I'm not going to label you. I'm not going to judge you. I don't have any expectations of you. But what I will say is that when I'm in your company, I feel inspired. When I'm in your company, I feel respect for you. When I'm in your company, I feel safe. I feel like I want to move towards you. So that's
you.
all I really, no labels, just that's my experience of you.
Oh, likewise, yeah.
There we go. We just did it. No need to
Thank,
label.
thank you for this conversation. It's been really,
Yeah.
inspiring.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. We're really, as Rumi said, Rumi's one of my favorites. He says we're all just really walking each other home. So true, isn't it?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
less labels, the less disabling. The less disabling, the more unity. It's just that simple. And we all do everything that we do in an attempt to feel better. When we label ourselves or when we label each other, it's never going to cause us to feel better. So
Yeah.
I hope you have a wonderful day, Tanya. I look forward to seeing you on the network soon. So anybody who's interested, please turn on notifications. I'll be back on YouTube again and again. And if you're interested in the network that Tanya and I've talked about, it is LynettaLinda.com. In the meantime, everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you choose to have a wonderful day. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye for now.